In a world where law firms constantly miss out on new leads due to sloppy legal intake, and often because they just aren't answering the phone, two marketers aim to provide a glimmer of hope.
Like, I thought we agreed we weren't going to do the announcer thing.
Thank God, because that hurts my throat. You do the intro.
Gladly. I'm Tony Prieto, and this is my colleague Nick Werker. Believe it or not, we're marketing professionals.
Well, I think you're the professional, but we are true experts when it comes to all matters legal intake.
For over a decade, our company, Answering Legal, has helped ensure that growing law firms never miss out on connecting with new leads.
And now we're ready to share our trade secrets and help make the legal world a better place.
Or at the very least, help our listeners shore up their lead capturing processes and convert more callers to clients.
Welcome to the Legal Intake Experts Podcast.
Let's dive right in.
We are back once again on the Legal Intake Experts Podcast, presented by Answering Legal and produced by Producer Joe. I am Nick Werker, joined as always by my co-host, Tony Prieto. And I'm super excited to introduce our third co-host for this episode. Wow, we do have three co-hosts for this episode. Last fall, she was a guest on the other podcast that I host because I'm a very busy man, not as busy as Jared Correa, but busy nonetheless. Everything except the law, and quickly became, this is a true fact about me, one of my favorite people. And I follow you on Instagram, and I don't know, you're just a great person, dude. You just have good vibes. But we knew that we had to bring her on to this podcast to talk about intake, because what she does largely has I wouldn't say a crossover, is involved in intake. But we're talking about Delisi Friday from First Call Friday. Delisi, how are you? Happy birthday.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, choosing to spend your birthday with us, like Nick said before we started recording, it's a questionable choice, but we appreciate it either way.
It shows how much I love y'all, you know? And now that I know I'm one of Nick's favorite guests, like I'm extra happy that I made that decision.
I am honestly a little bit hurt that you didn't know that you're one of my favorite guests. Like, actually, truly, because that would mean in some way or imply to me that I have not made that abundantly clear.
Now we have it recorded, so I think we're good.
All right, good. It's on record.
It's gospel.
All right.
Yeah.
We brought Delisi on here to sort of merge our expertise in intake with her expertise in referral marketing. But we always start these episodes before we get to business with something fun, sort of an icebreaker question for the theme. Nick, you want to take it away?
We do like to promote ridiculousness over here. We encourage it because I am a ridiculous person. And so I am going to ask you, as the cold open segment, to tell me about your best friend, because we're talking about friendship. Can you tell us about a best friend that you had during the course of your life? This could be a childhood best friend, your current best friend, maybe your podcast best friend. You know, that's up to you.
I don't mind starting. My best friend, Helen. I actually talked with her this morning because it is my birthday. Helen and I have been friends since 2001. So for over 25 years, she's been my best friend. And we joke that when we retire, we're going to create our own podcast. It's going to be like a mom's talking about true crime podcast, and just talk about true crime and what it means to be a mom.
My wife will be your number one devotional cult-like listener to that podcast because it will combine two of her favorite things.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a strong overlap between moms and true crime, for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Not in the way that Nick just did, just like mom, you know.
No, it's just so true. I wake up from a nap and my wife is watching, like, oh, and then the ex-girlfriend
Snapped.
murdered her boyfriend. I'm like, oh my God, what are we watching right now?
If you know how to have done the murder better and not been caught, then that's the kind of audience that I'm looking for with this podcast that has not yet been established yet, but will maybe a decade or two from now.
I don't think you'll have a tough time finding an audience for that at all.
I'll go next. A friend of mine, his name is Anton, and we've been friends since now for 15 years. So it's about half of our lives at this point. And we met because I was a kid. I was 11 years old, and I had like a Nintendo DS. I was playing a game, and I was talking to some other friends, and I said, really just kind of bored with this game. And this kid I don't know walks by and says, why don't you just give it to me then? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, just lend it to me. Like if you're bored with it, you're not going to play it anymore. Let me play it, and I'll get back to you. I didn't know him, so I said, no, why would I do that? And now we're like best friends. So
Did he give
That
you
is
the
a
game
very-
back?
I never gave it to him.
Oh, okay.
The story starts with me saying no. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if he
That was like
convinced you.
He's never convinced me of anything.
And he chose to be friends with you anyway. You didn't give him the game.
We've had a long storied friendship.
All right. My best friend, the curmudgeon, who I very much, he is a curmudgeon. His name is Joe Nash, which I think is the greatest name ever. But Joe Nash and I have been friends for 9 years, and he introduced me to slow pitch softball, which I cannot tell whether or not that's a good thing. But he is we are good boys. That's what we call each other. We are good boys. We try to talk about our struggles, and we just like talk on the phone all the time about our lives. And he is a really good friend and a good person. And he has a bunch of dogs. Actually, one more story about Joe Nash, and then I will stop being ridiculous. He and his girlfriend got really bored on a weekend like 4 months ago, and they looked at each other and they said, "Do you want to go down to the animal shelter and adopt some dogs right now?" He famously adopts elderly dogs and gives them a nice end of their life or lives. And because they went to the shelter and adopted 2 14-year-old Chihuahuas. One is named Mr. Earl and the other is named Princess. And they are hilarious and cute and cannot control their bowels. And that is my friend Joe Nash.
The thing about Chihuahuas, it's 14 years old. It's a real coin flip. Either they're going to live forever or they're not going to last very long at all.
Mr. Earl is gonna live forever, dude. Is gonna live forever, let me tell you.
He's going to survive it all. Do I go next? No, you go.
We've all talked about our stories, which means it's time to get back to business. And so we'll just start off with like a general question here, Delisi, just to introduce the topic. Can you give us some of the biggest mistakes you see law firms make when they onboard leads who've been referred?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say the biggest mistake is not training intake how to handle those any differently than any other phone call that comes into the law firm. And the reason why I say that is because I'm a true believer if someone's been referred to your office, if you know who referred them, the second part of handling that intake should be thanking that person. And that's where I see a lot of law firms dropping the ball because they write the information down. Nick was referred to me by Tony. That information's in the case management system. They're done. But that's a mistake because what you haven't done is thanked Tony for the referral. And so that's the biggest mistake that I see because you want that person to know you appreciate the referral.
See, that's what's so valuable about having you here as a co-host on the podcast, because we always talk about how intake faces the client, right? But this is an aspect of intake that we just don't really tackle here on this podcast, which is why your expertise is so valuable. Yeah, that next step is really crucial. Who does the thanking?
So that's a great question because it's never the same person. And it doesn't matter what law firm it is because each law firm is going to answer that question differently. So some law firms are going to say the person who thanks the referral is going to be someone in marketing. Another law firm is going to say, actually, it's going to be whomever has that relationship with the person who referred the case. So if it's an associate within the law firm, the associate has that relationship. Intake should let that associate know if they're assigned to that contact because they're the ones maintaining and nurturing the relationship. So it kind of depends on who that person is. Now, the really great law firms will make sure intake knows who that person is. Because the other part of it is sometimes they don't tell intake. And so you can't really blame it on intake because intake isn't exactly sure who to reach out to. They know they've done their job by filling out case acquisition, where did the case come from, but they don't know that additional step. So it's really important, like from a legal operations standpoint, you notify that person in intake what they do next, because it's not intake's fault if it's not clear what they do next and who does what next.
I have a very specific question for you because I ran into something recently. You just sparked this thought because you have to train your intake team, but they have to know who they're talking to, and then you establish the relationships, which is what you help do. But I ran into this phenomenon recently with a lawyer that I've been speaking with who gets a lot of referrals. And he was saying to me something like he knows a guy who only gets referrals. And I've been trying to get him. I'm like, listen, I know this person who runs this great organization called First Call Friday. I actually sent him your stuff too. Whether or not he listens to me I'll just persist because I am persistent. Anyway, so I'm talking to him and he said, oh, I got a phone call from a lawyer who was referring me a case. He has never spoken to this person before. And this lawyer took it upon themselves. They didn't have a relationship with this guy and the type of law that he practices. And so they just did a Google search. They called him and referred him this case. And I wanted to be like, well, what the hell did you do about it, dude? Like, did you follow up? Did you talk about next steps? Did you maintain this relationship? This only happened like 2 days ago, so I'm working on it. I'm sending him your stuff.
Saying, Nick.
And but he's like, oh, I get these referrals all the time, and I refer these cases out, and I do. And the thing that I do want to ask you is, and Tony and I try to be really specific about these things on this podcast in order to try and be more helpful, because I think if you read blog posts or you read articles about intake online, you can find like checklist items and then you incorporate them and you're like, the checklist is done. And I do know, because I've spoken to this guy about his intake, that his receptionist team in his office asked, how did you hear about us? And there's not much variance in how you heard about us. It's Google or it's a referral. And I just want to be like, well, do you ask who the referral is? You know what I mean? Because this is something so cool that I've realized about you is referrals are so prevalent in law firm marketing, in law firm relationships. Even just Ben Glass posted this morning, he's like 83% of all the cases that come into our firm is someone mentioned our name. That's referral marketing. Imagine how, listen, that guy's got a big firm. He's very successful. He's spent a lot on marketing, and 83% of the stuff originates from this. So my question is, in the first place, right? Say you have a new referral partner reaching out to you, and this sort of thing happens. Is this normal? Does this happen all the time? And how do you do this?
Yes. So first, what I would recommend is whoever is in charge of intake should be monitoring for things like this. Maybe it's an intake manager. Maybe it's someone like me who used to manage intake and marketing because they go hand in hand. Sometimes a law firm is going to have like a director of operations or a COO do it until they work their way up to have someone dedicated to just intake. Regardless of who that person is, it is someone's job to be looking at where those cases are coming from so you can become aware when a new referral source comes into the law firm in a timely fashion. In a timely fashion could be within a day, or it could be within a week, depending on how big the firm is and how many calls they're getting and what's realistic for them. So I recommend whoever is in charge of monitoring those things should be paying attention to new referral sources like this. Your question, is it common? Yes, it is common, because you never know who's going to refer a case, and sometimes it's not someone on your radar. So I had someone refer a case to me, not a case, a new client to me. They referred a new client to me, and I haven't talked to them in at least 5 years. 5 years. But we stay in touch on LinkedIn. We do things like that. And that's how they are aware of what I'm doing now. And so you never know when a new referral is going to come in from someone you already have a relationship or someone who simply was referred to you by someone else. And so it is quite common. The other part of it is people are aware of how important it is to refer people to the right law firm. And so one of the things I teach is if it's a no for you, instead of just rejecting that case, refer them to the right law firm that it is a good fit for. And if you're not sure who that person is, make it a point to find out who that person is or refer them to like your local bar association or your referral service. But never hang up the phone with a rejection and not some kind of assistance, because you always want that person who called your firm to have a really great experience calling your firm. And so it is quite common. I don't think that's ever going to stop. And it's really important for someone in the law firm to be monitoring when that happens and then trying to uncover, well, how did they get referred to us? How did this person find our name? Because that's just as important too.
I just got chills when you said, like, don't let them off the phone with like just a rejection. And Here's the thing. Here's the dissonance for me. I would say an overwhelming majority, which I don't know if if this is even a stereotype anymore, of the law firm owners and lawyers that I speak to are so nice, like really, truly good people. And they have to, right? If you're a good person, like if I think you're a good person, I mean, maybe I'm a bad judge of character, who knows? But I also assume that you treat the people who call your firm with respect and kindness and care. And even when I speak to them, I spoke to a guy recently and I was like, oh, but you know, when somebody calls your firm and it's like it's a rejected case, the way that you talk to them matters. And he's like, oh, I get reviews from people all the time because they call me. And he does like a workplace retaliation, all
Oh
that,
yeah. Uh-huh.
but not workers' comp. And so people
Mhm.
get that confused. They're like, I need a workers' employment lawyer, right? Employment. But really what they need is workers' comp. And they call him and he has to explain, no, I don't do that. You need this, you need that. And they're like, oh, but you took the time to explain that to me. That's so cool. Like, thank you so much.
Your friend's SEO is incredible. If another law firm just sort of Googled him, popped up and said, yeah, this guy, let's go with this guy.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. Agreed.
But so here's the thing, right? Like you've done the work, you've established these relationships. Someone sends you a client. You still have to do the work to make them your client. So what's that like, and how is it different from your usual intake?
That's a good question.
Ooh, that is a great question.
Good job.
I actually don't think it's much different than how you would ask questions to determine if the case is a good fit for your firm. The only thing that I think you should be doing differently is at the end, when you do convert that potential new client and they do become a client, I would make sure to thank them again for the person who referred them to your law firm. Just to remind them again, oh yeah, I was referred by blank. They really appreciate the referral. I don't think you should ask any other questions aside from what you would typically ask in your normal intake screening. My hope is you're also asking, when Tony referred you to our law firm, did you do any other searches online to find out more about our firm? That's where I would want to know, hey, the website looked really good. I saw you guys had a lot of reviews too. Because what a lot of people get wrong is they think, oh, if Delisi refers someone to me, that person is just going to call and that's all they're going to do. And that's a common misconception because that's not true. If I say, hey, Nick, you need to call Tony, Nick, you're going to go online and say, who is this Tony Prieto? I'm going to make sure I look up his website. I'm going to make sure I know who he is. I want to see a picture of him. I want to see his social media. So yes, the referral is going to convert at a higher rate, but that person's still going to do their homework because they want to find out who exactly they're calling. And so I would still be doing the same thing that you're typically doing when you answer those phone calls. But at the end, put like a nice little bow. Please tell Tony, thank you again for referring you to our office. We're so happy we're going to be able to help you. And we'll do the same and thank Tony as well. I would just add that at the end just to remind them of the referral again.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and it's funny how, again, we talk about Nick was talking about Ben Glass, 83% being referrals or whatever, and we think of those as being different, higher quality than your typical other stuff that comes in. But at the end of the day, it requires the same work to make that person into a client, regardless of whether or not they have received a good word from a friend or colleague of yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I think is so interesting? And I wonder what the economics are of this. And Tony's going to sit there and I'm going to make him really nerd out. I'm going to watch the wheels turn in Tony's head. I'm sure that for most people, and I'm sure there are outliers, the referral fee that you get from a case is like 33%. You get 33%. Pretty standard. But the amount of effort and time and money that you put into referrals has X amount of cost, which you could calculate. I have to imagine that the best part of referral marketing and relationship from a like monetary standpoint is the decreased amount of time that you have to go through sifting through all of the leads that come in. And this is so prevalent. Like if you're advertising on Google, people search crazy things and they'll submit some crazy stuff in your web forms. And I used to get this a lot of the time because answering legal is a misnomer for legal answers. And people We'll type in like need civil rights 24/7 legal answer hotline. Bing, Google, AdWords, Click, or it's not called that anymore. That's how old I am. And they'll send me a diatribe of I got caught with guns in the back seat and this and that, and they violated my. And I'm like, well, I know nothing. I can't help
This
you.
judge hates me. I need a different judge. Can you get me a different judge? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about, man.
Sometimes it is religious in nature. It is just, and so like that happens, right? If you're advertising, there's a lot of stuff that comes through. But if you are putting so much into referrals, I would say the fine tooth comb that you use for all your other lead generation methods, channels is, where are my words today? I don't have any, is probably less fine toothed. Teeth?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm at a loss today.
We get what you're putting down. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree with that because, so for anyone who is not aware of my background, I did spend 7 years in-house at Cowan Rodriguez Peacock, which just renamed as Cowan Law this past week. And during that time, we were 100% based on attorney referrals. So what my intake department looked like is very different from everyone else who is playing the ads game. My intake department didn't have to be as big. We could be very lean because I knew I was going to have less potential new client calls, but they would convert at a much higher rate. I also knew that we weren't going to have to play the same game as everyone else who's getting phone calls with people who are just making phone calls over and over to find the right lawyer, because the people referred to our firm most of the time were already signed up by the other law firm. So those referrals were not referrals in the sense where, hey, you should call this law firm to help you. They were already signed up. And that lawyer said, hey, I need to bring in another law firm to help with the litigation. And so my intake was very different because we could take our time a little bit longer than others who are getting those people who need to be signed up right then, right there. And they were already signed up. And we were just doing a consent to associate. And so that's a very different system. But because of that, I didn't have the high volume of calls. I didn't have the high volume of form fills like you had. It was a very different intake department. So yes, it is very different when you have a huge percentage of your calls are referrals, especially if you were someone like the firm I was at where it was personal injury referrals. I know that client's already signed up. That person, that law firm who's sending the client and referring the case already took care of that. And that's actually what I enjoyed about my job, because I never had to worry about that stress. I knew the client was already signed up. We already had the HIPAA. We already had all the things. I needed to make sure they signed that consent to associate, and we had a great onboarding process, and they knew we were now a team. Very different process than everyone else playing the ads game.
But that is amazing crossover experience for what you do right now. I have another question for you. Do you find this to be usual? And I'm sure you actually probably encourage this, but say you have a client and they want to do more referrals because they have a referral network, but like they're like, I stink at this. I don't know how to thank people. I'm awkward. I deal with this too. People are like, I'm so awkward. And I'm like, no, you're not. They have imposter syndrome. You've been practicing law for 30 years and you're a total winner. Whatever. Can you make a referral relationship so good, like what you're saying right now, that both of your intake teams work together to like refer you cases back and forth and make it so that, because this happens to me too. Like say I have a good relationship with a marketing agency. The marketing agency will send me a law firm and they'll be like, don't bother asking anybody else. Just talk to Nick. If you don't like what Nick has to say, then you can go do whatever you want. But I know Nick, I know this, whatever, right? Just go there. Fine. Does that happen with law firms that they're like, listen, you called me, I can't help, I don't practice that, whatever, but don't call anybody else. I have a perfect partner for you. And it's like the intake team coordinates that?
Yes, 1,000%. And I actually think it's the way it should be, because the law firm owner shouldn't be a bottleneck. You should have trained your intake team that they know who to refer the case to and they have that information. When I was a kid, I talk about this all the time. My first job was at my dad's law firm. And so when I was 14, this is how I learned all of this. I had a piece of paper with practice areas, the name of the lawyer, the phone number for their office, and I would be the one who would say, hey, Nick, you don't have to call anyone else. I actually know Beth. Beth is the right attorney for your case. May I transfer you to her office? And that's why I train on warm transfers for referrals on cases you don't accept. And so 1,000%, you should train your intake who they should call. They shouldn't need to ask any questions because intake should be very efficient. They should know exactly what to do. If they don't, then they need to have some kind of plan B that happens if they don't know the answer. Maybe it's some random case. Like in personal injury, I had to learn that if someone trips and falls at a casino that's owned by an Indian tribe, you actually have to hire a tribal law lawyer. Not just any personal injury lawyer can handle a case like that. There is a handful of people who do that. It's very rare. I know who it is now. He's out in New Mexico, but that's a very rare case. So if I had a list of people and someone said, hey, I tripped and fell at a casino, it's owned by an Indian tribe, I wouldn't know at that first call who you refer it to. So there's obviously going to be some exceptions to the rule, but you should 100% train your intake department, and so should the other firm. The other firm should be trained too. Now, can I train the other firm to refer those cases back to me? Yes, but it takes some time. You have to develop that relationship. And that's always what I want. I want referrals to be reciprocal, but I also have to partially train that other firm to reciprocate the love too. And that takes time.
I did know that you need a special, I didn't know what it was called, a special lawyer who can practice law on like Native American reservations, because I live I used to live a lot closer to a reservation. I think
really?
there's one or two. Yeah, on Long Island, there is a reservation, and there's a lot of Native American history here, which is very cool. I go to, once in a while, I'll go to like festivals and all that stuff. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm. It is a very specific kind of law, and not just anyone can do it. I had no idea. I learned that probably in the last 3 years.
I think it's also different everywhere. Like each reservation and each different Native American tribe has their own, what I'll say is like judicial process for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Nick called me a nerd. And I'm gonna reinforce that here. Because when you mentioned, make sure your process is in place for thanking people who send you referrals, immediately my brain was like, I bet you I could set up an automation where when you take something in, right, and you say it was referred to you by this attorney, it immediately pings the person who's the point of contact on that relationship. How much of, because it sounds so old fashioned, right? You're shaking hands, you're making connections, you people are passing clients back and forth. How much of this can be enhanced by tech?
Oh, 100%. Do you guys know Jay Ruane?
I know who Jay Ruane is. Yes, he has a very famous book, and he makes some of the best. What should you call that? Like one-line openers to his LinkedIn posts.
Oh,
he's got some good hooks. Thank you. Words.
Okay, so Jay Ruane is a great example of this. I have his book right up there on my bookshelf, Analog Marketing in a Digital World. And Jay talks about that in his book and how he has used tech and really strong legal operations to systematize this part of the process, because so much of his business comes from referrals. So yes, I do believe you should use tech, whatever systems you have in place to automate this. So what does that look like? Maybe it's using your case management system if there's a way to do it within whatever CMS you're currently using. If you're fortunate enough to have a CRM, if you use Litify and your CRM is Salesforce, maybe there's a way to utilize Salesforce to create that task. So someone in marketing or someone who is assigned to this role takes that action. But if you can automate it 100%, you should, because if it's done entirely by a human, obviously we're not perfect. Somewhere along the way, someone's not going to get thanked. But I think that's also where a good intake manager or operations manager comes in and has their weekly meetings or their monthly stand-ups and says, okay, here are the cases that came in that were referred. Did everyone on this list get a thank you card? Did everyone on this list get a thank you gift, whatever it looks like? And make sure those things happen. Because I would much rather someone be thanked later than not thanked at all.
In the TV show Hannibal, Hannibal Lecter, played by Mads Mikkelsen, has a Rolodex of business cards, people who've been rude to him. And he's the people he chooses to when he like throws a dinner party to chop up and eat, whatever. I just think
I love you.
know, that's a very old-fashioned thing. Imagine what he could have done with HubSpot. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Anyway, you want to take us home, Nick?
Oh my God. How did you do that?
It was so good. It was dark humor, but it was perfect, Tony.
Oh my God, that was so good.
That was really good.
That was I lost my
got me
train of
good.
thought. That killed me.
Yeah.
Oh my
man.
God.
Nick, please put that on a shirt for him to wear.
Imagine what Hannibal could have done with HubSpot. Oh my God.
Oh, something brilliant just came of that. Please make that a clip.
I remembered
Yeah.
the story that I was going to tell, and I'm not telling it. We're going to go out on that note.
Wait, can I follow that up? Tony, it would probably be a criminal defense lawyer. They'd know how to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the kinds of insights you'll find in about 10 years on Delisi's podcast.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, you have to stop. This is insane. This is crazy.
That's right.
Delisi, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. Before we go today, can you just give a short synopsis and tell us how we can send people to First Call Friday and how they can learn more about referral marketing and relationship nurturing?
Yes, if we can put a link to my website in the show notes, www.firstcallfriday.com, and first is spelled out. I have a whole page dedicated to resources. So I have tons of stuff that people can download and use for free. And then they can also find out if it would make sense for us to do some consulting or if they want to join my online community Pocket Docket.
Such an incredible brand name, by the way. First Call
Thank
Friday.
you. It's actually why I married my husband. As soon as he said, hi, my name's Marshall Friday, I was like, sold.
That's a great
Sold.
name.
It's such a good name.
That sounds
And
like a
before you
detective. Detective
Yeah.
Marshall Friday. That's great.
you love
Joe Friday.
detectives.
Sure.
Take us out, Tony.
Thank you so much for joining us as a co-host on this show. Delisi, before we go, just want to remind our listeners that we do this podcast in order to promote our brand, Answering Legal. You can go to answeringlegal.com to learn more about our virtual receptionist service. And there's a link in the bio to get started with a 400-minute free trial of the service.
Be sure to join us on the next episode of Legal Intake Experts, although I don't think Tony will ever top that joke. All episodes of the show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Jeff Bezos, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.
See you next time, everyone.